Welcome back to the Football Out West show. We're continuously seeming to have some sort of issues at the moment. Hopefully we're not going to have them for too much longer. Craig, are you there?
I am, yep.
Okay. Well, it's time to bring our next guest, or our first guest for today. And it's a very, very big welcome to the CEO of Western United, Chris Pehlivanis. Chris, how are you? Did I say that correctly? Pehlivanis. Oh, I've actually accidentally put him on mute. We just brought him on, and I've already put him on mute. How are you, Chris? How's things?
We're going well. No, thank you for having me, guys. And pronunciation was perfect.
Chris, well,
it looks like somebody set off a flare behind you, Chris. Yeah. You're in the smoke, mate. Is everything okay?
It's those Melbourne Victory supporters. We can't control them, but anyway.
Mate, firstly, thank you for joining us once again. Really do appreciate this. And tell us a bit about your journey in sports administration management, because you've been involved not only in our code, but you've been involved in a couple of other sports as well. So tell us the Chris Pehlivanis story.
Yeah, I have been involved in...
No, you're cutting out, Chris. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, sorry. I've been involved in sport predominantly most of my professional career, but I guess my journey in sport started as a young kid. I played football. Played football till I was probably about 18, and then had my second knee reconstruction where I stopped. So I played for East Bentley and Moorabbin City predominantly. Post that, I did my knee and got into refereeing. So I refereed in the Victorian football scene probably around 15 years. Qualified as a chartered accountant, and then decided to head over to Sydney and got a job for Football Federation Australia for 3 years, and worked there predominantly with A-League clubs, helping at the time a lot of the A-League clubs were in trouble. North Queensland, Adelaide, Brisbane, and a little bit Newcastle, in terms of transitioning them from private ownership back to FFA and then back to private ownership. So played that role for a while. Sorry, guys, you can hear me, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Yep. Then post that, yes, I did that. We also worked on the failed World Cup bid. Did a little bit of financial due diligence for the guys on that, and learnt a lot of good lessons from that. Then had the opportunity to come back home, Melbourne's home, and come back home and got a job in the AFL with the Essendon Football Club for a period of 8 years, where I worked myself up to CFO for the last 4 to 5 years. I joined Essendon just before the famous drug saga. So during my time at Essendon, it was a good opportunity for a young sports administrator, not only to learn about sports governance, but how to set up an organisation and ensure that you're putting in the right processes and systems to ensure that you have the ability to lead an elite culture, but also ensure that operating in the realm of what sport is, or what we all love about sport. And then the opportunity came to join the Western United group and the Western Melbourne group just before the start of the A-League season in their first season. So I joined 3 weeks before the start of the A-League season, the inaugural A-League season. Fair to say, there was a lot of work to be done, and the guys put a mountain of work, because the bid was, we've got to remember that Western United was born or came alive in December the year before, and 9 months later we had to have an A-League team playing professional football in the A-League, which, if you think about it and you go, wow, what an achievement just to get a team up and running, let alone a successful organisation both on and off the field. So yeah, that's my career in a nutshell. I joined Western United, we can touch on it a bit later, but I was just excited to get back into football, and I saw the opportunity of being part of a startup as something special. I can't hear Craig.
Sorry, Craig. Oh, just you there? Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Say that again. Yeah, we just lost you for a sec.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, perfect. So I was just saying, coming into a job, a CEO at any major club in Australia is a tough gig. But obviously, the inaugural season as well. It would have had its fair share of challenges both on and off the park. And obviously now you've had to deal with the crippling COVID pandemic. How have you found your baptism so far?
Yeah, I mean, every job's hard, and I guess we're privileged. I mean, let's get something. I know a lot of people complain when they work in sporting organisations and all or similar organisations. We're privileged because we work in sport. So you'll never hear me complaining about working at Western United or any other sporting organisation, because it's a job, but it's also our passion and our love. And I mean, we've got a unique opportunity at Western United. Yeah, things aren't perfect. Yeah, things can be better. But when you have an opportunity to build something from scratch, when you have an opportunity to, take people on a journey, unite the West, get an opportunity to, build a club, in Melbourne that is geographic, has this opportunity to, engage all football fans in the West. It's something that, I couldn't pass up on. A lot of people ask me, why'd you leave Essendon to go to Western United, a successful AFL club? You're going to leave and join a startup club. It was the most exciting job, I reckon, in sport, and we all hear the rumours, we're not going to build a stadium. I've seen some of the guys, Joseph asked a question earlier about, what's going to happen with our stadium, and we'll touch on that later. But from my point of view, I mean, the two competitive advantages this organisation's got are, we are from the West, we have got geographic boundaries, and the second one is we are going to be the first privately owned stadium club to own its own stadium in the West. So I know people are getting impatient about when we're going to start and all that, and I know we're going to have good news in the coming months, but there's a lot of work being done, and we've spent a lot of money, and I'll touch on that later on. But so yeah, it was really exciting to join Western United. Yeah, and it's been crippling. It's been in terms of COVID and all of that, but we're in an interesting situation. COVID has provided us opportunities too to, focus on what is important, what we want to be about for season 2, because season 1 was rushed. So season 2, let's put some more foundations in. So when we do get in our stadium, season 3 or 4, we're a polished outfit both on and off the field.
Let's talk about the club at the moment. How is the club travelling both on and off the field? Off the field, firstly, members. How many members has the club managed to attract in season 1, and has that figure exceeded, matched, or fallen short of what the club was budgeting for?
Yeah, so good question. 5,000. We're just over 5,000 members. Again, I'll say, for me personally, I think that's a great achievement for something that was born 9 months ago. To have 5,000 people commit and transact with our club within a membership, I think is an amazing achievement. Mm-hmm. I'm ambitious. Why don't we go to 7, 8, 9, 10,000 next year? I'm not going to put a target to it, but I'm ambitious that we can grow that number for many reasons. I think we've got to do. The West is very big. We played in Geelong, we played in Ballarat, we even tried it with an Oval game. We've got to come, closer to the heartland of the West, where our stadium is going to be built and where we're going to be around. But we've built some really good foundations in the community of Geelong and in the community of Ballarat that I think are going to be there forever. And the work we've done there was important. But I think we need to start also engaging with, where the larger community of the West is based and lives, and where more of the football fans play. I think I've been doing some analysis, and there's 108 clubs in the West in our area. That's a lot of clubs, and let alone kids at schools, and there's a lot of families that play football in this community. So our challenge, and I mean, you guys do a great job, and I'm thankful for even inviting us onto this program, but it's important that we spread the message about the West, get everyone behind this club, mm-hmm. and create a pathway for all our kids to aspire to be part of this club, both as supporters, as players, boys and girls, and I'll touch on the female strategy a bit later on, but it's important we build something that we're going to leave a legacy behind and that we're going to be proud of. And we've got to also pay respect. There's been clubs before us, and we're not immune to that. I know the history of football. The West is a region that's got a lot of history, and we've got to tap into that history and ensure that we respect it, and then build and ensure that we unite the game. The sooner we unite our game, the benefit for all of us in the West.
So you talked about the first year and really getting prepared, I guess, for second year. When you talk about the foundation, I guess creating the foundation, what do you think was the most important thing off the field that Western United could do? Was it creating brand awareness? Was it hitting that 5,000 threshold of members, or was it just getting out to as many different centres as possible to let people know, hey, we're here, we're not going away, type of thing?
It's probably been a couple, and the number one thing is we need to do community, and we need to do it well, and we need to be real in the community. So we're lucky we've had a good community team, but we need to get even better. And I'm going to challenge my community guys. So I want to ensure that we visit every club in the West, every school in the West, and do it in a way that all our players, our staff are there and actually leave a legacy. So we can go and run a clinic and we leave a few balls there, but that's not what I'm thinking here. We need to build something that is for long term, that creates an opportunity for us to develop even more talent, because the West has produced a lot of football talent. So and it also, it's an area where it's got a lot of communities, different communities, that we need to ensure we give them, the availability to come and watch professional football in this country. So for me, number one is the community. Number two is the foundations we have put in our stadium. Now, a lot of people haven't seen this, and a lot of the naysayers out there, and I hear it all, guys. Don't worry. I'm aware of everything that's being said out there about us. But there'll be a time when we tell our story, and I say a big but, and for everyone, the time is soon, and you'll see. And we've spent, and I'm going to tell you the number we've spent. It's over 35 million to get to the position we're in, because in order to build a stadium, the due diligence, because we're not only building a stadium, we're building a city out there. It's going to have houses, it's going to have commercial, it's going to have a smaller stadium, it's going to have potentially it's going to have 4 or 5 or 4 grounds additional to the stadium. So there's a lot of work going, the consultants, the thing. And we're lucky because we've got some amazing partners on this journey. The Wyndham City Council have been amazing in supporting us, and but we've got to go through a process. It's not like, I don't know who's built a house, and a lot of the people would have built.
Craig's building one right now as we speak.
Yeah. How long does it take you to get a permit?
God knows what is trying to build a 20,000-seater stadium. So
correct. That's what I'm trying to say. So people think you can just go and get a permit. It's not as simple as that. The work that needs to be done, and I tell I take a lot of my hat off to the owners and the vision that they had, but it wouldn't have happened without the city of Wyndham and the vision that they had. And there's a lot of people, I won't mention individual names, but there's a lot of people at the city of Wyndham who should be proud of the vision that they've had, and to partner with these owners who've had a great vision. Because, when we pull this off, and I say when, because it'll take a bit of time to get there, but it's not miles away. It's not like it's going to be 5 years away, but the reality is it takes time to even get permits and start, but we're not far away, So it's exciting, and it's something that I think, we got our license, let's be honest, we got our license December, about 1.5 years ago, and we're nearly at the permit stage, which is, if you think about the whole thing, it's not that bad. And I know I'll read a lot of messages will say, well, you guys should have already turned soil and all that. Well, realistically, it's not possible when if you've worked on one of these major projects, the detail that is involved, roads, fauna and flora, indigenous overlays, all that kind of stuff. So
just touching on before I go on to another question, are the Football Federation Australia putting any pressure time frames on when the stadium needs to be built, Chris? Obviously, part of the initial entry for you guys into the A-League, there would have been some kind of around that.
There is some parameters around that, but we're just got to work together with all those stakeholders. This could be the pathway. If we get this right, this is going to be the vision for that all clubs will need to follow. Because let's think about it. If we get this right, we're going to have an asset base and own a stadium where, if you look at all the other clubs in Australia, they haven't got, the only assets are their players, effectively. So, if we can build this and diversify our revenue stream, so then you're not, you might have a bad season. and you lose $5 million. But if you've got diversified revenues and diversified income, and you own your own stadium, you've got a different asset base, this could be the game changer, the model that other clubs are going to follow. And this could be the path. And our game can do this because we're crying out for rectangular stadiums. Like if we had a rectangular stadium, and we'll talk about this a bit later on, but if there was one in the West now, we wouldn't need to go play in a 40,000 Geelong stadium, which is too big for a startup club. Let's be honest. We all put our hand up on that. There's nothing wrong about saying it's too big for us because we're not that big yet.
Well, we're talking to Chris Pehlivanis, the CEO of Western United. And Chris, a lot of what you're saying seems to resonate with a lot of viewers. We'll just bring up some of these comments that are actually saying Maxi Sentich, a good fan of our show, says, please play in rectangular shaped fields that do not have the fans 40 metres away. Make it attractive for us to keep coming and feel that game, and so fans create the atmosphere we can pass on for generations. Rado Prusak says, continuing to play at oval stadiums will do nothing for improving that membership base. No atmosphere, too far from the action for fans. And then Josephine Lapilla, the club ambassador for the local area. Josie does lots of great things. She's at Football Victoria. She says, good things take time. Now, an interesting comment there from Chris Briffer. Why can't you use Knight Stadium? Chris, next season, are there plans afoot to play maybe in more rectangular style stadiums? Is Knight Stadium one option? What about George Cross? Obviously, there will need to be some sort of changes and modifications made. But with the ever-changing climate that we're seeing in the A-League, and who knows if we're going to have Fox or not, who knows if we're going to have all of this money coming in, et cetera, are these feasible alternatives for until a new stadium is built?
Yeah, so we're looking at these options. It's fair to say we haven't got a lot of options. We are looking at 2 or 3 different venues out in the West, and one of them is Melbourne Knights, and our friends at Melbourne Knights have been very accommodating and working through those, because it's easy to say go and play at Knights Stadium, but there are some regulations that we need to accommodate. Are the lights enough lux? Are the security measures in place? If we're playing Melbourne Victory over there or Melbourne City, can we get their away fans in get them in? But we need a stadium that is going to at least give us the ability to get 10,000 fans in at a minimum. So that gives us a couple of options, and one of those options will be Melbourne Knights. The other one, Whitten Oval. I think I'd be interested to hear with the fans that did experience Whitten Oval against Adelaide. I know it's an oval stadium, but we did push the stay closer to one side. And
there's actually a comment just come on there, Chris, from Michael Long. What you did at Whitten Oval, where you pushed the pitch nearer to the stand, was a good move. I was at that game as I was for most of them, and it was a much better atmosphere. You still had the people on the banks, at the VIP area behind the one goal, but it was a far better experience than certainly I've experienced down at Geelong, where you're just too far and the stadium's
correct.
too big.
And we only got 2 weeks notice of approval of that and 2 weeks to market that, and we still got a crowd of around 6,000 to 7,000 there. So I mean, there are opportunities. We're doing our work. There could be an opportunity in the Wyndham area as well. So there are different opportunities that we're looking at. But I know you mentioned George Cross. I mean, they've been a great training base for us. However, in terms of, it doesn't accommodate for 10,000 people and 12,000 people if we look for a stadium like that. I mean, if we could get on our Whitten Oval, if we could get the Western Bulldogs, who have been also very great supporters of ours. I know they're a different code, but they've helped us out. If we were to, be able to put some stands on one side and, on the far side, and then have the corporate stuff behind the goals, I think that would be a great option as well. So I think we're going to work through all those solutions, but I'm positive we can do it. We're also looking at Amy Park as an option, and what we're looking at Amy Park is the ability to play a Melbourne Victory there, or even a double header like the old days. Two A-League games, one after the other, but we're working through with the A-League, and we've got to be a bit innovative with the FFA to ensure that we can deliver something and get more football fans to the games. If Melbourne City have got a game and then we back it up with a game against another team and interstate team, why not play a doubleheader? But I think we learnt a lot this year, and we're also. I mean, if I had a rectangular stadium that had 10, 12,000 and that was fit for purpose, we'd be moving in. I guess that's why we're building a stadium.
I think you need to talk to St Albans Saints. They built a small grandstand, I think, within a week. That was incredible, that. Maxi Santich, if you're listening, was it a week that you built that little grandstand? That was incredible.
Just on St Albans there, I've refereed at a lot of venues, but St Albans was one of the most enjoyable. The banter you get from their loyal fans after a few beers is very good.
Well, behind the home dugout there.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's probably anyway, we'll have a chat about that another time.
We'll talk about that. Speaking of fans and banter, we've got Hayden Ellis, who says Western Service crew had a blast that game. Good location too, referring to Western Oval. And Simon Camilleri, mate, who's often on this show, says not enough toilets at Whitten Oval. There you go.
And he's right. We learned. So we did a review post game.
And
that was something that we picked up as well. So I mean, it's a good point, Simon, and it's something that we learned. It was our first ever game there, and it was, if we were able to play again there, we'd fix that issue.
Now, speaking of reviewing,
remember as well, Chris, you said right at the start, November, December was when you had the. We've only been going a year. The club's gonna make mistakes. All right. The learning is the learning from those mistakes. Okay, correct. So it's gonna be a time frame on getting things together. You're telling me Melbourne City, Sydney, Wellington, Phoenix, Newcastle don't have problems? Of course they do. Yeah, it's about getting them and making sure that the club understands the reasons why and not making the same mistakes next time. So
correct.
I want to touch on, move on a little bit now. Otherwise, we will be here till 11 o'clock, and it's really fascinating. I hope we stay as long as we can. But I want to talk about the A-League. There's a lot of frustration going on with the competition at the moment. When's it starting? When's it not starting? AFL started, Rugby League starting, AFL. I can't even say it. It started tonight. It's not AFL, is it? It's Aussie rules. It's not even football. It's Aussie rules. Okay. To attract. What's the latest with the news regarding obviously the recommencement of training, I suppose?
Yeah.
And are there any time frames along when the season's going to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult situation. First thing I'll say is we're obviously a new club, and we've been very impressed by the unity of all the clubs and the desire to get back on the park. So yes, you'll hear things like the leagues, the A-League could be this, it could be that, it could be whatever. My point is this: we're all united that we want to play. The issue we've got, and COVID's created the issue, is with obviously the broadcaster, and so we're going to work through that issue. They clearly want a haircut, and so that's got to be worked through. But I mean, there's the FFA are doing a great job, Foxtel are doing a great job. They've been a massive supporter of the game. I think the solution will be found. I think we're just got to be patient. The other complexity we have, which the other codes don't have, and people, it's easy to throw stones, is in the AFL, they were mid-season, so they could just do a deal to the end of the year and move on. We were right at the end, and our contracts finished at 31 May, which meant, and you've got visa issues, you've got players meant to be going to other clubs, like what they're experiencing in Europe. People have transferred from the 1st of June, they're meant to be at other clubs. So it creates a lot of issues that you've got to work through. They're not simple issues, because I'll give you an example. Is player X is earning 100 grand at Melbourne Victory. He's signed for Melbourne Western United next year for 300 grand because he's a young star, whatever. That kid wants to come to Western United because his salary is going to increase by 2. But for the integrity of the game, we've said, no, he's got to stay there for 3 months till we finish the season. But these deals just can't happen overnight because people are impacted, and so it's something we're working through. The aim is to obviously get the league, get us training as soon as possible. And there's the 17th of June or mid-June's been mooted as the day. And then start our competition in mid-July. So I think FFA's come public with that. That is our aspirational target, but we're all working towards that. So the ultimate aim is to complete this season by the end of August with the grand final, and then obviously shift our focus onto next season. My personal view is the quicker we finish, the better, because we also need a good lead into next year, because for us as a club, we want to get to all the communities. We want to build our sponsorship, membership base, and build for season 2 as well. So the longer this uncertainty drags out, I mean, as from a Western United point of view, it does create frustration, and people are getting frustrated. We want to see the game we love back on TV, and who knows? Within a couple of weeks, we might even get some fans coming to the game, which will be amazing as well.
I guess there's so much uncertainty, and I guess, look, when it hit us all of a sudden and hit us so quickly. And look, the A-League was the last of the professional sports to stop, and it looks like it's going to be the last of the professional sports to restart. So I guess, obviously, we can understand the frustration of the fans and the average punter out there. And I guess, unbeknown to probably a lot of us, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. Has this disruption, you've already started talking about how you're planning on next year, but in a real fundamental way, how has the planning behind the scenes happened at Western United to really get maybe one foot up for next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenging time for all organisations, and a lot of the clubs, and you'll hear some stories that everyone stood people down, and other businesses have stood people down. I've been lucky enough, we've been able to keep most of our workforce employed, for 3-4 days a week. And with the view is we can't control what's happening this season. What we can control is what we're going to prepare for next season. So my workforce and my team and my executive team have been united to focus on let's get all our ducks in a row, and let's get us focused on next year. So we've put a lot of work in. What are we going to do in the community space? What's our strategy on membership? What's our strategy on merch? We've locked away, our jumpers for next season. All that kind of stuff has already been done. We just need to know when we're going to start, and then from there we'll work back in terms of executing all these strategies. So it's been a blessing, to be honest, from our point of view, because we took a deep breath, and the staff have been really focused on setting the good, even better foundations for next season. So I guess probably the only final piece we need to do is understand when the season's going to start, so then we can lock in what's going to be our home ground strategy. Is probably the only piece that's left, because if you start in January compared to November, it will change for the potential home venues.
Yeah.
So
just on that, and you talk about the training, getting back in the match venue. What are the plans for the training base going forward, Chris? It's obviously you're currently using George Cross up at Fraser Rise, which is a fantastic base for you for the club. Is the plan to move out to the new stadium to train, obviously when that's up and running? But in the meantime, is it a case of you stay at George Cross for a period, or what's the plans around that?
Yeah, I mean, George Cross has been fantastic. If you look at a startup club, to have a facility like what George Cross has delivered for us in the first year, it's been great. I guess the challenge for us at the moment and going forward is, obviously, as a new club and creating a culture, we want to expand, and we want to expand in women's football. We want to expand in academies. We want to expand in all that sort of stuff. The other thing is, I'm also a big believer that the club administration and football department, all that needs to be united, needs to be at one venue. At the moment, we're a little bit disjointed because we've got a head office in Truganina. We're at George Cross training, and then we play games somewhere else. So ultimately, when we build our stadium, it's all going to be together. If there's an opportunity to somehow, over this period, work towards something like that. But you've also got to remember that, George Cross is a very, very good training base and an elite training base for us. And, for the A-League would be one of the better things. So you're not going to compromise that just for the unity part. So, but it's something that we always keep looking at it. But clearly, George Cross has been a very good, for Western United has been very good.
Now, a lot of people are asking even a rough estimate on the stadium. I suppose there's 2 points to that question. When would you like it? ASAP. But when realistically can we expect it? And we understand it's difficult in these COVID situation and what you're not. But is there realistically a time frame when fans can expect the new stadium to be up and running?
I can't give you an exact date because of COVID and the planning process. And we don't want to jeopardize that and put pressure on people, unwarranted pressure. But what I can say to everyone that's listening is this. We are doing everything we can to plan for the next 2 seasons, a home ground strategy for the next 2 seasons, with the view of that following season. So our 4th season, or what is it? It will be October 2022 to be in the new stadium. So that would be, that's what we're hoping for, but there's going to be a lot of work to be done to obviously deliver that.
Yeah. But I guess it gives everyone hope that, it is, there on the horizon. I suppose that's the big thing. And look, taking a step back now into the season just gone by, even though it hasn't completely finished, but from a crowd perspective, Western United somewhat struggled to get bums on seats, especially down Geelong, and I suppose to an extent Ballarat. But if we're going to look at it assessment-wise, from a community engagement viewpoint, in my opinion, the club scored a 10 out of 10. It was a brilliant job. The recent Easter lockdown period also saw the club drop off, about 100, 200 soccer balls or something like that to various households. That's what we are told. That seemed to be a big hit, didn't it?
Yeah, it was, again, it was difficult because of COVID. We had to get exemptions from the police. So we wanted to do more.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had to get because don't forget that was in the peak of COVID. So we had to write to the police and get an exemption to deliver the balls, and we had to wear gloves, and we had to go follow all the different protocols. So, we did, I think, nearly 200, but we wanted to do more. And so some fans did miss out, but we tried to get to as many families as we could with a view we'll do similar things to that. Yeah. In terms of bums on seats, it depends what your expectations are. I mean, we're a startup club. I always go back to this and say, 7 months, no one knew who we were. 7 months later, we're in the A-League and we're getting crowds, we're getting crowds between 5, 7, 11,000. We got a crowd we played in front of a crowd of 20 against Melbourne Victory, the first time we played in town. And that was an amazing day for us. Now, so if your expectations are for it to be bigger, we'd all love it to be bigger, but I'm patient. I think what we're going to do is work and be aspirational that, next year, let's try and get an average of 7.5, 10. And then by the time we get into our 15,000 seat stadium, let's pack it out. And you know what? If you want to get in, you have to buy a season ticket. That's aspirational. But I think from a startup club, it was, I would have loved more, but it was okay. I think
so. You're pretty satisfied looking at it from a club business point of view.
Correct. Yeah. No, we are satisfied. But I think as Geelong was a tough market too. I think our first 3 games it was torrential rain, and the other thing is I think what we can do better, and I'll bang on this, and a lot of your listeners will know this, is we need to unite our game. We need people in the West to believe. And FFE's got to play a role in this, and everyone's got to play a role that we need everyone to believe that we're the club for the West, and every kid needs to, they needs to be able to know who we are, and then bug their parents to bring us to our game. That's my goal. If I can do that, I think, because when kids come to our game, I know they have a great time. So I think we've all got to work hard, and it's all our job. Everyone that's involved in a club in the West, it's your job to promote our game and then promote Western United as your club aspirationally. And you know what? We'll work well together because, there should be a pathway for these kids to eventually end up at Western United. There should be a pathway for them to get jobs at Western United. There should be a pathway for them to be members or part of the Western Services crew. Whatever it needs to be, we need to create that pathway. There's no reason. And it's the fastest growing community, I think, in Australia potentially, or one of the fastest. So
and it's one of the reasons why, all joking aside, why we started this show, Chris, to try and engage with the Western clubs. It was the whole reason behind this was to get clubs to come on and talk about their club, what their club's doing well, what their club could do better. And we've just decided that we branch it out a little bit further. But it's a show for the West, and we want more and more people to get involved with it. It is the fastest growing sport in Australia. It's the biggest sport in the world. People should be.
Craig, I'd like to think that we're very, very progressive and we're innovative. If it wasn't for this show, the golden generation would have got together. They wouldn't have been talking about that. So we want Western United to be just as innovative and trendsetters. And from all accounts, Chris, with this whole concept of a stadium and a stadium precinct, as you said, a city, we're certainly going to go down that path. Isn't that right, Craig?
Absolutely.
You are spot on.
Let's get back into questions. On-field matters, Chris.
Go for it.
There's been a number of questions on the side, and I'm gonna come out and say it because the listeners want to know what's the situation with Alessandro Diamante. Look, I had the pleasure of watching him for a number of years in the UK, and every time I've seen him on the pitch over here, he is just a total different class to anybody on the pitch. Is he going to be a player at the club next season?
Has been amazing for the league and for Western United. So what we need to do is, finish off the season. So I've been in constant discussions with Dia. We've got to get one thing straight. So a lot of people are asking the context on Diamante. So there's been a lot of rumours about Dia going to Melbourne Victory and other clubs. And Dia wants to stay in Melbourne. Dia wants to stay in Australia. So that's a positive. First thing I've got to say is no player can leave another team in this window for the next 3 months if the league goes on. So if Diamante is a Western United player, he needs to finish off the season as a Western United player. Dia's view is this, and Dia is a professional, and I can't talk highly enough for Diamante. So myself and Dia are in constant conversation. We talk probably every 2 days about this issue. The problem we have is one. I don't know when next season's starting yet. I don't know what I can offer him. I don't know any of that stuff. Although we have a framework set up, Dia and I are in constant conversation, and I know that even if Dia is going to go somewhere else, we will have a conversation. My belief is that Dia and our will at Western United is for Diamante to be signed next year. We want Diamante, so we can say that out aloud. I also want Diamante to stay, and I've said it publicly before, post his playing career at our club. So, there might be an opportunity for Diamante to, start mentoring some of these kids in the West, or even coach some of our academies and give back to the, community in the West, because he wants to stay in Melbourne. Imagine, we had a group of, let's call them under 14 boys or girls come to training, and they've been trained by Diamante. Like, I mean, one of probably the best players that has graced our shores in the recent times. So, I haven't answered that. Is he definitely staying? Because no, we haven't signed him yet. But our intention is, we're gonna do all we can to sign him. But sometimes, you can't get what you wish for either. But we're gonna try our best.
Maybe we need Giovanni and Sarah and Werribee City down there to offer him free spaghetti bolognese for the rest of his life at the Werribee Italian club. There would be a good idea to have him on board post career. That would be such a big boost. And we talk about players that have made such a big impression. I know my kids. They were absolutely impressed with Diamante and wanted to watch Western United just because of him. The buck stopped with the kids asking for tattoos like Alessandro Diamante. That couldn't accommodate that. But
hopefully we can get it to sign. Hopefully we can get him on this show as well, guys. That would be that would be
fantastic. Look, he's a different gravy to anybody that I've seen in the A League. Just his passion. When things are going wrong on the pitch, he's the one that's shouting and bawling, and he's 36 years old, coming to the end of the career, but he's got such an appetite for the game that it's contagious. And you only got to go and sit and watch him. And if you just, all the youngsters that are listening to the show, if you get a chance to just go and sit and watch them train, the Western United, watch a game. Don't take your eyes off him. Just watch what he does on the park when he has got the ball. More importantly, what he's doing when he hasn't got the ball. He's unbelievable, and certainly one of the best left foots I've ever witnessed. So
yeah. Now, Josie Lapila, the club ambassador, says, look after the needs of local clubs and the respect will be given. Keep up the great work you do for football. And in her Facebook profile, she's got, looks like an Italian flag. So she'd be definitely wanting Diamante to stay there. But a big shout out to Pete Bradley from the community team. I know he's been a big fan and big supporter of our show. And last year we gave so many double passes away to some of the games and what you're not. But that comment that Josie makes, Western United, particularly the community department, they have really gone out to clubs and asked them, what do you need from us? So from that point of view, it's been a phenomenal breath of fresh air, if you like, because with all due respect to all the other A-League clubs, I don't know if too many of them are actually doing that. So that's certainly one thing that Western United ought to be commended upon.
Yeah, Tony, we want to do more. Tonchi, we want to do more there. The issue I've got is I need to work with clubs and Josephine and people like that to understand what meaningful contribution looks like. Going to do just an event and bringing our players, we can do all that. But is that what clubs are wanting, or is it something more from Western United? So we've touched the surface, but my thing is, how do we get all the clubs in the West to really believe we're their club, and what do we need to do to show them that? You know, that's the aspirational. That's the aspirational, I guess, vision that we have. Is, you know, so we've got Pete, and he's an amazing ambassador, but he's only one. What we need to do is we need to roll out 4 or 5 of these, and get out to as many clubs as we can, because reality is with Pete, he's only one. He's going to get to 5, 50 clubs. But I want to get to every club and leave something there meaningful behind.
Chris, what's your research suggest? I mean, obviously the clubs are so diverse, so different. There are 108 clubs there in the West, and they've all got their own agendas, if you like, or whatever the case. What has your research suggested to you that the clubs most want?
It's an interesting one. I think they want to really feel part of the club. I guess, it's an interesting one. My view is, can we work with these clubs to, I guess, show them that we're genuine by providing them, for example, a tool to help them coach their kids, to help them, I guess, develop their talent or something like that. And it might be, in today's society, an app. It might be, a weekly coaching tip from Mark Rudin, our head coach, or from our goalkeeping coach, or something like that. But it's got to be meaningful, and it's got to be easy for them to access. I don't know what the answer is, and we've got to do some more research here. But I think it's going to be interesting. And we've got to be careful too. So everyone's banging on about let's have academies, and I'm a big believer that we should do academies. But what I don't want to do is go and steal all the best kids from all the clubs in the West and give them nothing in return. So we've got to be careful how we do that as well. So if anyone has any good ideas out there in terms of making sure that we do it in a proper way, I envisage that our teams, our youth teams and our women's teams and our academies are going to be predominantly based out of the kids from the West. But, well, what I don't want to do is then, everyone to say, oh, look, Western United took our kids and they're left behind. But what I want to do is make sure, because the reality is, and we all know this, we're all football people, out of those kids, probably, 2, 3 may make it. The rest are going to end up back at these clubs, back at playing football in the West. So we've just got to make sure we do it in a way that, we're not stealing kids, but we're creating a pathway, and a genuine pathway, and then they get the benefit. They get the kids back at hopefully at even better quality. But anyway, it's something that we're going to give a lot of thought to, and something we're going to work with the clubs in the West, and we're going to ask a lot of questions, and we're going to do this properly.
No, that's a really good comment you said then about giving something back to the clubs, because we've touched on this over the last few weeks about what does it look like. Too many clubs now take the best players, and those kids might have been at that club since they were 8 years old. Now they're 15, got an opportunity to go to a pro club. What's giving back to the club that's coached him for those 8 years? So it's really important that that that's taken into account, I think, as well. But look, it's great to see that the club are thinking. We keep going back, Chris. We are only this club is only a year old.
No, we've had Steve Horvath come on the show and say that, but it's great to hear that it's an ongoing philosophy, that it's not just hearsay and we're hearing it once, but it's and I've heard this from a couple of people at Western United, giving back to the clubs, giving back to the region, and that sort of customer engagement and that customer relationship building takes time like everything else, but it's certainly heading in the right direction. All right, we've talked about Alessandro Diamante, and there's also a few people saying, is he free next Tuesday to take under 12s training? My wife makes a great lasagna we can eat after training. But other players, which other players are coming off contract, and who has been secured for next season at this stage?
Yeah, we've got probably about 15 of our players secured for next season, so we don't have that many coming off. So Bess is signed for next year. One of our, obviously, scored another, I don't know, what's he at, 15 goals already this year?
Yeah, he's incredible, that guy.
I mean, he's an amazing person too, off the field. I mean, Bess for me is, I mean, you see him on the park, and then off the park, he's an amazing leader. He's an amazing person to work with. So, I mean, I've been blessed to work with someone like Bess. He's taught me a lot of things off the park. So, most of our boys are signed up. There's a couple that are not, that I want to re-sign, but again, we're waiting on. So in the Diamante bucket, there's about 4 or 5 that we want to re-sign. I mean, that's something, But we also want to build our squad. I'm really big on rewarding players. That are. They might have a year to go, but giving him an extra year. Someone like Maxi Burgess, who's come on, even a player like Josh Rizzo, Aaron Calvers of the world, that's going to be our, that's our future. That's our core of our future. But anyway, we've got to work through that. But there is clearly, we've got a good base to work from.
Well, the 2 players you just mentioned there, Max Burgess and Josh Risdon, we talk about Diamante and Berisha, and those guys have been fantastic this year. When Max Burgess has played, he's changed the game in most games. And Josh Risdon must be on. I don't know what he's on, but I don't know how the guy does so much running. I've never seen anybody run. The last person I've seen run as much as him was Cafu, I think it was, for Brazil. He's just constantly up and down that right wing. How he does it, I don't know. But they would certainly be 2 players that I would be very, very keen on seeing in the club, because they are the future of the club, as you said.
Just on, I'm just going to answer Chris. He's written 2 good questions on the Chris Griffith, I think he is. I'm a big believer, mate, in terms of community clubs or NPL clubs. I don't differentiate, mate. A club's a club for me, and we've got to work with all the clubs. So if there's a good kid in the community club, let's give him an opportunity. I mean, and the other thing is, I come from an AFL background where, I'm a football person, but I've had the opportunity to work in the AFL for 8 years, where we'd run at Essendon Football Club, we'd run a community day and have 2,000 kids in Bombers jumpers rock up to our club to do a holiday program. That's something that I think, Chris, you've suggested there. That's something we're going to bring in next year, where we'll have our boys train, come and watch them train, and then do some clinics with, if we can have even at George Cross is, how many pitches is there? 4 or 5 pitches. If we can have, all those pitches full of kids, and they come in and they do something, for at least 3 or 4 days, even in pre-season and then during the season, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us. I think a lot of that work needs to be done in pre-season, because the funny thing is, when we're playing during the season, a lot of kids are on holidays, and it's hard to. The thing that I found hard is to gauge with clubs in terms of during the summer periods, because they're always shut down, most of them. When we start October, November, December, I was trying to get kids to come to our games or march around the things, and it's hard to engage with the clubs because they've either shut down for the, it's off season. So I think what we've got to do is ensure that we do all the work, so then in the off season we can get them to the games. But it's important. It's something that I think is very important.
There have been suggestions, or I guess, suggestions from various quarters, particularly now in the COVID lockdown era, about changing the season. And I think this has even come from the Golden Generation themselves, changing the season to align with the NPL and the grassroots, and playing from a February, March potentially through to a November. What's your personal opinion about that? Because in that way, it probably goes hand in hand with what you just said. Then it'd be easier to connect with some of those local community clubs.
Yeah, I think it could be a disaster.
Oh, right. Why?
Personally, I'll tell you why. If we go up against the AFL and NRL head-to-head from a broadcast point of view, so if on a Friday night you've got Western United and you've got Collingwood playing Richmond, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. The other thing is, what we've got to be careful is all our kids are playing football in the winter. So if you're under 18s and you're playing at 3 o'clock on a Sunday or a Saturday, and your game finishes at 5:30 or a seniors game, these are all the people that come to our games or should be coming to our games.
Mm.
And if they're dragged away to all their local clubs and then we drag them away to Western United, A, that's a problem. They should be helping their local clubs. But two, to get them to come to Western United to watch a game might be challenging. I think the window we've got is okay. I really do. We just got to be careful by going into winter. We don't compete against each other because, you know what? If the NPL's on every week, I'm there watching a game. If not, I'm going to be dragged away to Western United. Everyone that's listening is probably the same. So we're just got to be careful what we're trying to, I guess, achieve by going to the winter season.
And that's a really good point. Everyone talks about moving to a winter season and coming up against the other football codes and what you're not. But very few people actually say moving into the winter season, you're then competing against your own. So you're competing against the NPL, you're competing against the community leagues. That makes a hell of a lot of sense, Chris.
Yeah.
Craig, did you have a question?
Yeah, I want to touch on the academy. You touched on it very, very briefly, Chris, and I know time's getting on now, but I just want to touch on the academy. When do you see the academy taking shape? Is it something that's in the plans for the next 12 months, 24 months? Is it a case of when the stadium opens, when you've got the pitches? Because, of course, one of the big issues that the club will have is facilities to accommodate a team that's going to be playing for 40 weeks of the year. Where's the club in terms of the academy, and what sort of ages are you looking to start from? And does it involve both girls and boys?
I'm very aspirational and I want to do it as soon as we can. However, we need to get the model right. And we need facilities, and two, it needs to be for boys and girls. I'm actually gutted, and I'll touch on it now, that we can't have a women's team in the W League. And I'm actually even more gutted that we can't even potentially have a women's team in the NPLW at the moment. So we've got to go through a process which may take a year or 2 years' time. For me, that is, it's challenging, and I'll tell you why it's challenging. Because as a startup club, we're going to be like every other club and organisation that's been in professional sport and just focus on your men's side, whereas we've got a chance to embed the women's side and the diversity from day one. And the benefits of doing that, not only from of the obvious benefits, but even just, as humans, being, having equality in our organisation from day one is going to give us a lot of opportunities. So I'm really focused, and I'm really focused on the women's side and making sure, A, we get a W League team, and two, to ensure that we do it in a manner that whatever we do in an academy space is done for both boys and girls.
Chris, why you touched on that? What's the problem? Why can't Western United have a team in the W League? We spoke earlier today how Wellington Phoenix are talking about wanting to have a team in the W League themselves, and they might be based here in Australia to cut costs. Is it the problem at FFA at the moment? Are they just holding things back, or what seems to be the holdup?
I think the reality is it's probably two issues. The first issue is they'll say is a talent issue. However, my view is that's rubbish. We'll build it; they will come. Let's create the talent. We've got enough talented girls in the West. You know what? We'll get the best coaches and we'll develop the talent. And you know what? Maybe we're not competitive in the first year or second year, but I promise you something: with the right infrastructure and right training, we'll develop the talent. There's enough girls playing our game out there. That's one thing. I think the other one is clearly a financial thing from the head office in terms of, putting an extra team or two might create an extra fixtures. The cost of running that is probably, million or whatever it is. Only they know that, but clearly it's a financial thing too. But it doesn't mean we're going to not stop pushing, because we want that, and it's important we get it. I'm equally as passionate that there's got to be a pathway. At the moment, yeah, I see Simon's comment. Not enough female players, Chris. I think there is. I disagree. I think we can develop them. I think we can. If you build it, and if you build the right infrastructure and the right academies, I'll ask you this question: How many clubs in the A League are developing, and how many clubs are developing, even in the NPL, are developing young girls and academies in that space? So if you're going to do it properly. So build academy. I know it costs money, but there's ways to get this thing funded. But build the pathways from 12, 14, 16-year-old girls that can come all the way through. So yes, it may take some time, but we need to ensure that there's a pathway there for girls, and especially in the West. And so I'm adamant that we need to do it, and we need to do it quickly.
No, that's great news. That's great news for women's football.
Absolutely.
I know there's a lot of talented young girl footballers around.
And there's a lot of young, talented.
Most weekends with my daughter, and it's there's some fantastic young footballers out there.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is there's a lot of young, talented coaches, female coaches, and administrators, and they need to be in part of our game. We can't lose them to other codes, and we need to keep them in our game and give them a pathway for coaching and playing.
Absolutely. On a positive note, we have seen a positive note off the field. A wonderful cause that the club did become involved with, and that was a partnership with local-based charity Food Bank Victoria. And I'm told it's for the 2021 season for next year. Tell us a bit more about that and what's involved in that.
Yeah, so Food Bank is our charity partner. Food Bank is an organisation that you get as an A-League club, you get approached with a lot of charity partners. I guess why Food Bank was important to us is A, they're based out of the West. 2 is the most important thing is I was staggered, but 1 in 5 people in Victoria have experienced food insecurity in the last 12 months. I mean, it's a statistic that I think 1 out of 5 kids go to school without food or something like that. And when I took my executive group and my coaching group through this, when I told them about this organisation, they just told us, where do we sign up with this organisation, and how can we make a difference? How can we partner with these guys to help them, A, create bigger awareness, and 2, get some funds redirected to help kids have a proper meal, so then they can train and they can play and they can. So there's a clear connection for us from nutrition into sport, and so that's why it was a partner that close to my heart, and something that I think if we do properly, from a club point of view, allows us to go to all these communities and make a real difference. And again, back to making a difference. We say, let's make a difference to our own communities in football, but this is another example of doing things properly and ensuring we'll make a difference in the community in the West and going and helping underprivileged people. That we can convert into football fans, even if they're not football fans. It doesn't have to be there. So it's something that I'm really, really proud of. And it just shows that, when people, all the naysayers out there say things about Western United, you got to look at the surface and look at all the good things we're doing in the community, like a food bank partnership, it's not for the near future. This is something that, I want Food Bank to be a partner of ours for the next 5 years, and our charity partner as we expand.
Fantastic. Great stuff.
Oh, brilliant. I think it's a great initiative, and more and more clubs should be involved in that type of thing. And it just shows, again, we talked about it, how far the club has come in a year or so. I've not been directly involved, but I've seen, as everybody has, the rise of the club over the last 12 months, and it's only going to get bigger and stronger. But things take time, Chris. They don't happen overnight, and people have to be, aware of that and patient. And good things, as Josephine said, be patient, and good things will come from it. So there are a lot of supporters on tonight, Chris. Do you have any final words of wisdom for all the Western United fans out there?
I'm just going to say a big thank you, firstly, to everyone in the West. everyone that supports our club, thank you for coming on the journey with us. I think we're privileged to have been able to create a club in the West, and now I just want to make it very inclusive. I want to give everyone an opportunity to support this club. My ambition is that every person in the West, boy, girl, parents, everyone, to have the ability to come to our games and be part of the journey that we're going to go on. I guess our club is nothing without the members and the volunteers that help our club. Our staff and players, all right, we're all paid. We're living our dream. But without your volunteers and without your members, we're nothing. You know, we're something we're proud of at Western United is our volunteer program. We've been able to put a program together that gives us a proper program for volunteers to taste what it looks like and give people an opportunity to be involved in the community and in a professional club, and then it gives them a taste, and later on that can transform into greater engagement and even employment opportunities for those people in the future. So that's something that we've built. Our HR director Shane Day has been instrumental with that, with Pete Bradley, in terms of developing that program, and it's something that we're proud of. But as I go back, this club is really for the people of the West. I'm thankful to the Western Services crew, to everyone involved at WFC, all the other member groups. We're there for you guys. We want to make you guys proud. We can't wait to get back on the field to do what we do. But ultimately, I say this is our opportunity to do something and leave a legacy for the people of the West. And be respectful. I know there's been clubs in the NSL in the West. I know there's a lot of clubs, community clubs and NPL clubs with a lot of history in the West. However, we need to unite those clubs behind us and show everyone that this is our opportunity to make a difference. Because if we're fractured, that's what other people want to see. That's what other people want to, that's their opportunity to find weaknesses in us. I do have one problem with you guys as well, is I'm going to actually send you one of our tops to have behind, because you don't have an official top behind, and I need to send you guys an official top.
Rob Palmichotti texted me this afternoon.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I'll read out.
I've got my cap. We're on board. We're on board.
I know you're on board, but I need to give you an official top from the first season.
Rob Palmichotti's told me this afternoon. He said, "Put it on Chris tonight to get a hurry up. I'm sure he will oblige." So he's obviously
he would do that. He would throw me under the bus. But anyway,
there you go. Well, we've got a couple more comments. It's great to see a lot of fun banter happening and discussions happening in our comments thread. Chris Briffer says, hand in hand, Western United, get involved in the community, which will build a culture and a membership base. Well done, Chris. Keep the job going. Fantastic stuff there. Josie Lapilla, who's a big Richmond supporter, watching that other crazy sport. She says, great announcement. Volunteers are the most valuable human beings in football. Well said. Well, I'd actually say well said, Josie. The most valuable human beings in football, absolutely. And it is really, really fantastic just to see a lot of love, a lot of support out there, but also from the club themselves. Chris, thank you very much once again for coming on the show. We've really appreciated it. It's almost been 90 minutes, but for me, I don't know about you guys, it's been compelling listening to hearing the insight of what he's building and an exciting foundation behind the scenes.
Yeah, look, it's really good to listen to you, Chris, and see what the outlay looks like for Western United. Us as fans of the football club in the West here, want to see a successful football club in the West. The club have gone from strength to strength over the last 12 months, and you can see that in everything that they've done. Results have been good. If we haven't touched on that, but if you'd have said you'd the chance of being in the top 6 at the start of the season, you probably said yes, we want to win it. But the reality is, that's always the pie in the sky stuff. But the club are doing fantastic things on the field and brilliant stuff off the field. And long may it continue, and keep up the great work, mate, because you're doing a great job.
Thanks a lot, guys, and look forward to jumping on in a month or so with even more news
We-
for the fans.
That's what I was going to suggest, but you've taken the word out of my mouth. So the invitation is most certainly there. We'd love to see you in a month or 2 months and have a better indication of what the immediate future awaits. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Chris.